This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast on ESPNRadio.com. The Best of Mike and Mike.
Hey, it's Golic. Thanks for checking out the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Here's what we've got for you today. Do we need to prevent court storming? A-Rod reports, and the world keeps on turning. Charles Barkley and Jeff Van Gundy on the NBA, and Mike Mayock wrapping up the combine.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
In Manhattan last night. Here they come. A Manhattan storm. The players are climbing up out of harm's way. I've got a pair of Nikes in my chest here. Save the monitors, boys. I don't mean to laugh because it's an uncomfortable laughter. That's Brent Musburger, who parenthetically is a man in his 70s, who's sitting there amidst a court storming in Manhattan, Kansas last night after Kansas State beats Kansas. That was the call on ESPN. A terrific basketball game and a great win for the kids from Kansas State. And listen, I am a former court stormer, so I understand the incitement. I was there January 1988. I stormed the court in Evanston, Illinois. I was a student at Northwestern. We beat then defending national champion Indiana on Big Monday on ESPN, and I was among the very first of the students out on the floor. As I've told you before, my old roommate Craig Isaac still has Dick Vitale's game notes from that game.
Did he ever get him signed by Dick?
No, he's never run into Dick since then. I could bring them over.
I thought maybe you do that for him.
I could try, but the point of it is this. So I've stormed the court.
Yeah.
I cannot sit here in judgment of court stormers. But here's the bottom line of it. That is an unsafe scene last night. It is amazing that no one got hurt, and it is absolutely just a matter of time if those things keep happening before a player, and I give all the credit in the world to the Kansas players for getting off the court without doing it, because one of these days, Mike, a player is going to punch a fan in the face, fearing for his own safety. The world is going to come down on the player, and it's going to be completely unfair.
Listen, we know what the downfalls of it can be is the court gets stormed, as I believe Bill Self used, and we'll hear use the term chicken-winged. And listen, like anything else, 99% of the people running on the court are running on the court to celebrate with their guys. And then you get a couple of agitators out there who are going to agitate the opponents. It's going to happen, whether by a chicken wing, it'd be a dumb move, quite honestly, or by getting in somebody's grill on the other team and aggravating. And there have been confrontations before, and there will be confrontations again. I hope we can figure something out with this, because I know there are a lot of advocates to not letting the court be stormed. I'm not one of them. I like it. I was never in your position. I was normally on the court or on the field.
Right.
I was, the stormee, not the stormer. I believe I said that correctly.
You did.
So I don't mind it because I like what it represents, and I don't know the answer. Is it, wait a minute, hold off on the spontaneity of the court rushing while we get the other team off the court, and then you can rush the court? There's kind of that right at the buzzer, the court gets rushed, and you see it. I mean, we see it all the time. I like it. I'm a fan of it, and I know there are a lot of people that want to end it. I don't know the answer, because if you leave the spontaneity there, the other team can't get off. If you watch that video, Bill Self is pinned against the table, the opposing coach. I mean, that's not what it's meant for. It would be nice if the opposing team and coaching staff can get away from that. That would be then you got no issues. But that's what this is about. Is obviously there's safety amongst, students rushing the court if something happens. But most importantly, it's about what happens with the other team. The other players, because those are college kids too. There's college kids running on, and there's college kids playing. And that could be a bad mixture.
Look, at the end of the day, as I've said before, I am a former stormer. I stormed the court, and I only did it once because we really only had occasion to do it once. I would have done it as many times as there had been. But there is another part of me that says, you know what, that court is not meant for you. And by you, I mean me. I was sitting there as a student, and the student section, behind the opposing bench, yelling and cheering and heckling and all the rest of that. And I don't belong on the court. The court is for the players and the coaches and the people who belong down there. And if they have to keep the fans off the court long enough to get those kids, the players and everyone else involved, away and out of harm's way, then that's what they have to do. Because last night, you just said it, and for those who haven't seen the video, we'll do the best we can to show it to you. It's abject chaos on the floor. Bill Self is pinned against the thing. You got one assistant coach seems to have somewhat someone in a headlock. Bruce Weber, the coach of the victorious Kansas State team, is screaming and yelling and trying to get everybody out of the way.
Which is spitting into the wind at that point.
Because it is a mob immediately, and no one is in control, and that's the problem. There's absolutely no order for a good, I don't know how long, a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. No one is in control of the situation. So you're right. I like it. I agree with you on principle, which is the place that it is coming from is a place of celebration and joy and having fun, and I'm in favor of all of that. But you are just begging for something terrible to happen if you allow situations like this.
Yeah, listen, I get it. So what's the answer? That's the thing.
There has to be some pause. There has to be some line of security standing around the court, and you give the opposing team enough time to get off, and then you let people on.
I think that's probably the safest answer, because I don't want to hear the just don't let them storm the court, they don't belong on the court. I don't want to hear that. I don't want that. I love the fact that, you know, that this is a rivalry, and this is a team in Kansas State who is under 500 this year, not having a very good year. And, oh, by the way, they did the same thing to Kansas last year that they just did last night. So I like it, and I don't want the answer to be, well, just get rid of it. To me, that's too easy of an answer, and I don't think you need that. But there needs to be a way, and I think the way might be to hold them off for that. You know, guys can get off the court pretty quickly.
Yeah, give it 15 seconds,
listen,
20 seconds.
We all see what's about to happen.
Right.
So when that game ends, you know, for Bill Self and his crew, just go. You know what? I know a lot of them stay and shake hands. I get that, but there are situations where you just go and you let the team celebrate with their fans.
And last night, remember, there were kids that are still on the court.
Exactly.
There's a shot in the air. There's a rebound as the game ends. So there's that. The ball is actually in play. And a minimum of 5 Kansas players have to be out on the court while this is happening. Yeah. Literally, as the buzzer sounds, they're still out there. Again, I don't want to be a spoiled sport. I don't want to be a killjoy. I want the students to have fun. I want the celebration to take place. But if there isn't some kind of pause, it is amazing that no one got hurt in that thing last night, and it is just a question of time before someone is seriously hurt, and then you look back and you say, well, why were we allowing this in the first place? Yeah. And that's what you don't want to have happen. Here's Bill Self.
I'm nervous for me. You know, there are several students that hit our players, you know, not saying like with fists, but I mean, you storm the court, you run in, you bump everybody, stuff like that. This has got to stop. I mean, I think court storming is fine, but surely you can get security to the point where player safety is not involved like it is over here. The last several times that they've won, they've stormed the court on us. But that's disappointing that happened again. But we also allowed it to happen again by not playing well. But yeah, but I mean, it's a ball game. It's not about chicken winging somebody when the game's over, stuff like that. That's not what it's about.
Well, it's not, and that there again it lies in most situations the 1%ers that cause the issue. But even say nobody did the old chicken wing or nobody got in the face of a Kansas player, it still can be a dangerous situation because they're on there so fast. The Kansas players are then weeding through all of that to get off the court.
And the reality is it isn't just the Kansas players. That is an unsafe situation. If you're looking at it, it is a mob, and someone completely inadvertently can get pressed.
Sure.
Brent Musburger
fall down, get stepped on.
Someone falls down, they get stepped on. Remember there was that highlight we had a year or two ago. There was someone wheeled someone in a wheelchair out in the middle of one of these things. Remember that? I mean, this is a dangerous situation. It is a problem waiting to happen.
It is, but I don't want it to end.
I don't either.
Don't want it to end.
But there is a happy medium, which is you have to have some sort of pause.
Delayed 30-second spontaneity.
Yeah, I mean, it's no more than that. But it isn't spontaneous. This isn't spontaneous. I mean, you're calling it spontaneous, but it really isn't spontaneous.
I mean, they know
everyone can see what's coming. Yeah. You know what's about to happen.
I guess
you hear Musburger's call. Listen, Musburger. Listen, how long after the buzzer does he call it? Here they come. I mean, here they come. I mean, it's immediate, literally immediate. So everyone can see it's coming. So you get your security guards and you announce before the game and on campus and all the rest of that look, we've got cameras here. If you don't wait until the time when we're allowing you to come out on the court, there are going to be consequences.
Yeah. I mean, it is the way because I don't want to end it. So there has to be a safer way, and you're just going to have to delay the court rushing.
The victorious coach, Bruce Weber.
Well, I did apologize to him. I tried to shield them off, and then our fans were so crazy. I actually started pushing some of it, and I love it. Get excited, you know, but don't let the other team and their coaches off the court. You just got to be smart And, you know, I've been on the other side. I've been where, you know, teams have stormed the court on us, and and you get bopped around, you lost, your emotions are high, and that's where bad things can happen.
That was Bruce Weber here on ESPN Radio last night on the Freddie Coleman Show. So what is the answer? Why don't we throw that open to you? You're going to have a better idea than we are on this. Chatter lines are open right now. What's the solution to this problem? Because it cannot be denied that this is a problem. Or at minimum, it is a problem waiting to happen.
Right.
740-535-MIKE. That's 740-535-6453. What do you make of this last night? Again, I don't want it to end.
No, I do not.
You don't want it to end. But you can't allow it just to happen the way that it's happening. It's what everybody's talking about with Mike and Mike, brought to you by Myrtle Beach Golf Holiday. Start planning your getaway to Golftown, USA. Visit online at myrtlebeachgolfholiday.com. And we'll remind you here at Mike and Mike, we are on Instagram. And be sure to follow at ESPN Mike and Mike. We got special videos. We got exclusive pictures from the show you won't see anywhere else, especially right now leading up to our 15th anniversary and a whole lot more. You can follow at ESPN Mike and Mike on Instagram starting right now. We catch our breath here, Golic. All right, so that was not what we expected this morning.
No, but
you get a situation like that. I think it was worthy of being the first word.
I agree, and it just happened a few hours ago as well. So let's talk about it. Let's get it out there. Let's see if we can find a solution for it.
A few hours before that, a problem to which there is no solution. Alex Rodriguez arrived a couple of days early for spring training with the Yankees. They seemed unhappy to see him. I can't remember a veteran player showing up early and at meeting with such extraordinary disdain from his team, but you know what? There may have never been a situation quite like this one before.
So here's the deal. So remember the Yankees wanted him to have the presser at Yankee Stadium. Mm-hmm. Basically, they wanted him to have his presser anywhere but at spring training, right? Yeah. Anywhere. Yeah. So A-Rod shows up 3 days early, and you're right. Rarely do you get anything but praise for a player that shows up 3 days early.
And by the way, what we never got to hear from you, just reminded me of it because you were off that day, was your reaction to his handwritten letter. His handwritten letter. Mike, it was very sincere. He hand-wrote it.
It was as sincere as Timmy Legler's handwritten letter that he had to go to Sports Center.
So you did see all of that?
Well, I saw that.
Okay,
yes.
Very good. And did you hear Frank Caliendo?
I did. Doing Morgan Freeman reading the letter?
I take full responsibility for the mistakes that led to my suspension for the 2014 season.
So, I mean, we've been through all of this, and now a week later he shows up again.
How do you not, feel for the man when he takes time to write it in cursive?
Yeah, and then ask Morgan Freeman to read it.
Well, that's exactly right. So here's the deal. A-Rod, have your presser anywhere but here at our spring training site because of the distraction. So A-Rod shows up early, and the reaction is, well, I wish you'd have told us so we could have got security. Listen, this relationship is what it is. But here's the amazing thing. He had his presser. It was a mob scene, right? The world is still spinning, gang, okay? Somehow, some way, we were able to make it through the presser. I thought that was amazing from the beginning of that. The Yankees brass said, we don't want it here because of the distraction. Yes, you're right. Athletes have no clue what distractions are or large press conferences. They've never been around them before. I wonder if all the players got hazard pay for having to deal with that distraction. Stunning. A presser was held. It was a mob scene, and we all live to talk about it today. I mean, talk about much ado about nothing, but this is much ado about just a completely, forget fractured, it is a shattered relationship that somebody has got to get on the high road and stay there if this is going to happen. Now, I heard A-Rod's presser. I'm sure everybody heard A-Rod presser. I'm sure those that hate him are going to say he's full of garbage, and those that on the other side are going to say, okay, listen, he's saying all the right things, and he is saying all the right things, but it's too far gone for that. Okay, but you know what's still got to happen? He's going to be in that dugout playing for the Yankees because at this point it doesn't seem like they're getting rid of him and handing him the $60 million. They're going to make him play for it. So he's going to be there. So at some point you have to work out something other than, well, he showed up 3 days early. Not great. Maybe he should have let us know he was coming early and we don't want the presser here. At some point, everybody needs to get over it. He got suspended. His legacy is crushed. He's never going to be the same player, but he's on that team. So, and you're going to hear it from the outside in. So why not on the inside try and make it a livable situation?
I tell you what Alex Rodriguez did to me on Sunday. He made me yell at myself. Have you read the J.R. Moringer piece?
No.
Okay, it's about 20 pages long.
That's why I haven't read it.
It's the piece on A-Rod from ESPN, the magazine. So I finally read it. I was, as you know, I was delayed in the airport in Orlando for 2.5 hours. I had a lot of time. I read it. I read every word of it. I yelled at myself multiple times. And when I yell at myself, here's how long we've been together. When I yell at myself, it's your voice I hear. Because
Is there a lot of stop-its and realies?
Because multiple times while reading it, I felt sorry for him. Now, I know I shouldn't. I know that I am a fool, and I'm naive, and I'm gullible, and I'm buying it, and all the rest of that.
Yeah, you are.
But I did it. It is the story of a man who has destroyed himself.
Yep.
And at least verbally recognizes it. If you read the piece, he acknowledges it completely.
Said it yesterday in the presser as well.
He is bearing his soul, with the exception of the stuff that he can't tell you legally. With the exception of he can't acknowledge what it is he did or took because there are legal consequences.
I don't blame him. I wouldn't be sitting at a presser yesterday. I wouldn't be saying that either.
Well, he can't. I think there are also reasons he cannot. Exactly. He can't incriminate himself.
My line would be there's going to be time for that down the road, not now.
He has actually committed crimes, and he can't admit to them. Yeah. So there are sidebars to that as well. But I'm reading it, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm in this little room in the Orlando airport, and of all the airports, this was the Sunday that everyone in the world is flying back because a lot of schools were on vacation last week. Mm-hmm. So what did everyone with a chance to do it do? They took their kids to Disney World. Right. So I'm surrounded by 9 million screaming 3-year-olds and everything else, and I'm reading this piece, and I'm thinking to myself, oh, my God, I feel sorry for Alex Rodriguez. And then I'm hearing Golic's voice in my head.
I'm glad.
Stop it.
You should have slammed your head into the wall at that point, because that's what I'd have done.
You know what? I was trying to do my imitation of you. Stop it. Stop it. That's you. Just stop it. Stop it. Really? Really? Really, Greeny?
You feel sorry for the guy.
I do. I feel sorry for him.
Exactly what he said yesterday.
As contrary to my own understanding of the circumstances as it is, there's just something about a person who is so insanely flawed. And the basic premise of the piece, and I'm sure some people have read it, is long. But the premise is that the fractures in his life stem largely from the fact that his father left when he was a kid. Right. And he never recovered from that. He felt responsible for it, and he sort of never got through that. And the whole thing sort of is seen through that prism, and he's visiting college campuses, taking college classes. It's pathetic is what it is. And I genuinely actually at times felt sorry for him, which was why I then heard I heard Golic's voice in my head going, stop it. Really? Really?
Did my voice in your head work?
Stop it.
Did you stop it?
No, I did not. I emerged still kind of feeling that way. Here's Alex Rodriguez yesterday.
There was plenty of mistakes along the way. I cringe sometimes when I look at some of the things I did. But I paid my penalty, and I'm grateful that I have another opportunity.
Is that audio okay? In my ear, that sounded pretty fake. Can you guys hear that? I'm making sure the audience can hear it because there's obviously a lot of noise around him and whatever it is.
Yeah, because it's a presser on the field, which I still can't believe it happened.
He's talking about making a ton of mistakes, thankful for another chance. You'll hear the question here, is he confident he can perform without using drugs, which I think is obviously an important question.
Are you confident you can succeed without doing anything that substances that you've done in the past?
I'm confident that if I stay healthy, I can do some good things.
I mean, that really is the question, and it's one that is not acknowledged in the piece because he can't acknowledge it.
Right.
But the question, listen, I think it's a perfectly fair one to ask. Has he ever played?
How long you been on?
He wasn't on it.
How long you been on it? And now that we know he's going to be off, or at least we believe it. Now, listen, there's still the testing that goes on.
Well, at this point, I think he has to be off it.
Well,
because if he gets popped one more time, he loses everything. Right. He already lost $25 million.
Let me just put it this way: it would be stunning if he were to be on them again.
It'd be a $60 million risk for a 40-year-old ball player.
So I don't think that's going to happen. So it's a fair question: is how will he play? And I thought he answered all the questions. I'm not sitting here and saying, I'm on A-Rod's side in this. A-Rod said what he wanted to say. You can decide whether you think he's sincere or not. The damage is the line. The damage is already done. It's beyond even that. There's no coming back from this. There is zero redemption from this. A-Rod knows that. The Yankees know that. So all you can do is go on and see what he's going to give you on the field. Mm-hmm. It's not like even if he has a good year, people are going to say, well, all is forgiven. It's never going to happen for him. But if they're going to have a work relationship, you have to try and make it palatable because it's a long season.
I have an over-under for you on A-Rod that I think will be fascinating. And it involves a fellow by the name of George Herman Ruth, known to the world as Babe.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
The best of Mike and Mike.
The scene last night in Manhattan, Kansas. Here they come. A Manhattan storm. The players are climbing up out of harm's way. I've got a pair of Nikes in my chest here. Save the monitors, boys. I mean, that's Brent Musburger last night with a call on ESPN, and there's a part of you that wants to laugh because it sounds kind of funny, and God bless Brent, but the truth is it's a dangerous situation. It's a dangerous situation on the floor last night. It's dangerous for everybody involved. Bill Self, the coach of the losing team, the road team, is pinned up against a table. The coach of the winning team, the home team, Bruce Weber, is freaking out, trying to clear some space. He can't do it. The losing players are trying to get off the floor. Someone's got someone in a headlock. There's just mass chaos. Now, again, I admit it. I am a court stormer. I stormed the court at Northwestern, January 1988. We beat Indiana. They were the defending national champs. I may have been the first. Oh, my God, is this video of that game?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I still remember it. That's Terry Buford running out the clock, and there's Bill Foster, the coach of Northwestern, and we won. And one of those people on that court is me.
Now, that court storming took a little more time to fill the court. Last night it was full in about 10 seconds. Now, if you're watching or if you see this on...
That was us. Yeah. Oh, whoever got that video, good for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And let's go through that a little more. I still remember Terry Buford running out the clock, and I'm one of the first people on the court. The student section is right behind the Indiana bench, so I'm going to be one of the first people you see running out of there, and you're just jumping up and down, and it was a great moment. And no one got hurt. And again, my roommate still has Dick Vitale's game notes.
He just went and swiped.
And it's a good memory. He just yanked.
He swiped him from Dickie V?
No, like Dickie V was over interviewing our coach, Bill Foster. And he just went over to the scorer's table and just picked up the notes. He still has them. But the point of the story is that it was a fun, good memory, and no one got hurt. And most of the time, nobody does.
Right.
But if you watch this scene last night, it is just so clear someone is going to.
And listen, people have gotten hurt already. We're getting so many stories of either colleges or high schools where people have gotten hurt. And obviously, nothing is worth that. So I'm sure there would be those that say the easiest thing to do is just shut it down completely, other than give reasons to delay it. Someone said put the clock at 30 at the end of the game, and everybody has to wait till that counts down at the end so everybody can have a chance to get off the court. I wish you could find a way to keep it, but not at the expense of an injury. I mean, that's not worth it.
My suggestion is stop promoting people charging the courts. If you stop showing it constantly, people will eventually learn not to do it.
I don't agree with that at all.
Completely. I could not disagree more with that. We have nothing to do with it.
740-535-Mike. People do not. Television networks has a long-standing policy. When someone runs on the field of play during a game, they don't show it.
They don't show it.
Because that is a person looking for attention.
Right.
That's not what's going on in these court stormings.
No.
This is a celebration. It's a party. It's everyone, running down there together. They're not doing it to be seen on TV. Maybe a few people are.
I'm sure a few people
But
are.
largely, that is not the motivation. I can tell you, again, I stormed the court. We just showed you the video.
You had no concern
At
about
no point was I thinking, I'm going to be on ESPN. Yeah. I just wanted to be out there and jump up and down. Right. There was no other motivation. Right. I didn't sit and think to myself there was any purpose. I just want to be out there and jump up and down and celebrate the fact that we beat the defending national champs on national TV. And the fact that we were on national TV was about the fact that we won the game, not about me being on national TV as a fan. More chatter.
Yeah, if the game is more than one possession, 5 seconds, the officials should call an official timeout. Get the opposing team to one corner where they're closest to the exit, and as soon as the buzzer leaves, you got security right there to get them down the tunnel.
Yeah, I mean, what am I remembering? We had this incident with Duke, And didn't they clear an area? Didn't Coach K take a bunch of his players off early? This happened a couple of years ago.
But here's the thing.
Is not what it was.
That's fine if the game is decided. But what if it's right at the end?
Even if it's not decided. So what are you leaving? The 5 kids on the court to fend for themselves? Let's get everybody else off?
No. That's my point. You can't just have a designated area because it could be the end of the game. You got 5 guys on the court. You got to figure out a way to get those guys off the court.
There were going to be 5 guys on the court regardless of whether it's a close game or not.
I understand that. But people are saying anticipate it. Where you sometimes in some games you don't know though you're going to win.
Right.
You don't know you're even going to get the win to storm the court.
So this stuff has to be done ahead of time. Before the game starts, you need whoever a bunch of famous people are doing a video message. Listen, everybody, if we win today, and look, a lot of people are including me, are superstitious about that stuff. I never want to start having a conversation about what we're going to do if we win, because me. I'll always assume the second we say that means we're going to lose. But some things are more important than that, and keeping people safe is more important than that. So keep that reaction coming all morning long. We'll see how it turns out. Adrian Peterson, is he never playing in Minnesota again? This is a fascinating story, and by now you saw it. It was tweeted initially by CBSSports.com yesterday, and there had been a lot of little signals that Adrian Peterson was on his way out of Minnesota lately. The biggest now coming as a result of the decaying relationship between AP and the organization. A dramatic turn at the Combine. Peterson's agent, Ben Dogra, had to be separated from a member of Minnesota's front office during a heated verbal altercation.
Yeah, Vice President of Football Operations, Rob Brzezinski.
This, according to sources telling ESPN and CBSSports.com. Again, CBSSports.com was the first place where we saw all of this yesterday. According to the sources, the agent engaged in a heated exchange during which the agent made it clear Peterson would never play in Minnesota again. The incident took place during a time when outside parties were in the vicinity. Former Tampa general manager and our analyst Mark Dominic intervened, separating the men and diffusing the escalating tension. So the point is, Mike, is Adrian Peterson, which we have been, if you've been reading the tea leaves, you've been getting this feeling for quite some time, that Adrian Peterson was going to be out of Minnesota.
And who was, by whose hand would it be? That was the question, because at Minnesota, all of a sudden you heard that they would want him back, but you heard from Adrian's camp there was a lack of trust because he felt they, helped in the gang up mentality on him for going on the exempt list in the first place. So there was a bit of mistrust there. Here's the bottom line. Minnesota has his rights. Minnesota controls what happens. If Adrian Peterson doesn't want to play for Minnesota, the end game can be Minnesota just saying, fine, guess what you're not making this year? All your money that you're supposed to make. So you cannot want to play, and there are ways to go about it. Is do you make a business decision if you're Minnesota and say, okay, let's get something for it if we want to trade him, or are we going to release him? How are we going to work through this situation? Or do is the relationship so far gone you don't care if you stick it to someone in this situation and just say, fine, you don't want to play for us, you're not playing for anybody.
Let me ask you a question. We all know the first place everyone's going to look, and that's Dallas.
Sure.
We remember the story about Jerry Jones last year in which, he took a phone call with Adrian Peterson, whatever it is. It was the league looked into it, whether it was tampering or whatever the case may be. But Adrian Peterson he's from Texas, and it's been made no secret that he has always had some interest in playing for the Dallas Cowboys. If you're the Cowboys, do you make a trade? And if you make a trade, what are you trading for him? And you're about to give a whole bunch of money to DeMarco Murray.
If you trade, you're picking up he made what, 11 mil last year, more than that, something like that?
He still has a ton of money left.
He's got a lot of money left. So if you're trading for him, unless you're working out a new deal, a more cap-friendly deal, you're paying him a lot of money. Or, how old is DeMarco Murray?
He's a year younger. I think he's a year younger than Peterson. Peterson, I think, is 28 or 29. Murray, I think, is 27.
Something like that.
I think I have that right. We'll look it up.
So, either way, you're getting closer to, you're getting a guy that's closer to the magic number of 30. So, and is it going to cost you less? So that's,
Peterson is 29, Murray is 27.
Yeah. That has to come into play, doesn't it?
Peterson, when last seen, was still the best back in football.
Yeah.
Right? Just dominant, pure, give him the ball, let him go. With a great offensive line, a top-flight quarterback, and a huge receiver out on the wing, and a tight end who catches passes.
Yeah.
Adrian Peterson could be an unbelievable weapon.
Absolutely could be. It depends on the money you got to spend for him, because you're already trying to avoid that with DeMarco Murray and Des Bryant.
Well, you would be avoiding it with DeMarco Murray by bringing in Peterson.
Yes, you
They're
would.
going to franchise tag Des Bryant.
No, the point is you're still giving someone big money.
No, I get it, but my point is,
Peterson.
Would you rather give the money to Peterson or to Murray?
Yeah.
And then you've got...
You can tag Dez.
You can tag Dez, which they're talking about doing anyway.
Right, yeah. Boy, that's a thought. I mean, that's certainly, it's a guy that's 2 years older, and in running back years, that's almost like dog years, though. You know what I mean?
But he's 2 years older, but he's 1 year less pounding or whatever it would be. I mean, he didn't play last year.
He didn't play last year, right?
So you tell me, does that add up? Does that count? Is it a dog year? If you didn't play, if you're 29 but you've only played the amount of years that a 28-year-old has played?
Do you know where it affects you because you didn't play? And football is a game that you can simulate other sports at times, but football you can't simulate. You can work out all you want in the offseason. You can't simulate the game. So while we'll say your body was rested for a year, and if you're a glass half full guy, that's what you're going to think, but also you're a year removed from all those hits. So again, my worry is what I worry about A-Rod is that hamstring, that quad, that calf, that groin, getting that pull and then that lingering, especially when you're older for a running back. So that would be my worry.
MikeandMikeVote.com. You can vote from anywhere, anything. Got a phone, an iPad, a computer, wherever you are. You can vote at MikeandMikeVote.com on whether or not they should create a rule that eliminates the hacker phenomenon. This goes back to last Thursday night, and I went crazy about it on Friday morning. It's unwatchable. You can't watch it. Should the NBA ban the hack-a-player strategy is the actual question. I brought it up on Friday morning. They need to do something about it. Jeff Van Gundy on the telecast of Wizards-Cavs that night took it a whole step farther.
Look, if we couldn't call every travel in the NBA, it would almost be as boring of a game as the hack of DeAndre from the last couple of national TV games. And I was telling you this today, and I really believe it. Adam Silver today should say the rule changes starting tomorrow. I'm not asking the teams. I don't care what they say. And if they try to vote against me, then I'm going to make their schedule miserable next year. They'll play 47 back-to-back games.
This is ridiculous. Just think for a moment, gang, before you vote, of what we're saying here. We're saying that a player, in this case, DeAndre Jordan, is so inefficient at what he does as a professional athlete when he is supposed to, be able to do his craft hopefully a little better than 40% free throw percentage. He's so inept at that because of that, Jeff Van Gundy is screaming to change a rule because a person is bad at his craft. That's ridiculous. He shot, 28 free throws in that game?
And made 10.
Guess what? The Clippers the Grizzlies beat the Clippers last night. My God, they were able to beat them, and DeAndre Jordan took 4 free throws. They didn't hack a Jordan, and he made 1 of 4, and they still won.
And you know what the game was? It was watchable.
So now we're going to change it because one person can't do their job efficiently enough. So let's change the entire rule. That's ridiculous.
He's not the only person in the history of the sport. He's the current person in the middle of this.
What did we name yesterday? 6 players over the last 6 decades that get hacked a lot?
The point is,
let's change everything.
As long as we have had sports, we have had rules changed in order to make the sports more watchable and more fan-friendly. And I would defy anyone to say they sat through the fourth quarter of that game the other night and didn't pick up a book and start reading it because it's unwatchable.
Of 82 games of all the teams.
Then it's a rule that won't affect most of the games, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
So
we have a one-and-done rule in college basketball. It only affects 5 people, right? There's only 5 kids who are good enough to go one-and-done, but you make a rule for the exception, and he is the exception, and he is a problem.
Here's the difference. You made a rule for the one-and-dones because they're good enough to be in the NBA. You're talking about making a rule because someone is so inept at the pro level at his craft that you now want to change a rule because he's bad at what he does.
I'm talking about changing a rule to make the sport more watchable. If you like the shootout in hockey, they added that because they decided that they didn't like games ending in ties anymore. If you like all of the offense that we're seeing in football nowadays, it's because they changed all the rules because they decided the fans wanted to see more offense. If you like more offense in baseball, they lowered the pitcher man at one time because the pitchers were dominating too much and they felt there wasn't enough offense in the game. There has been changes made to make the game more watchable and entertaining for fans as long as the games have been played, and that makes the game unwatchable.
Minimal change, for minimal effect on the court. Overreaction to something that barely happens, and it only happens because of the ineptness of a guy who's supposed to be better at what he does.
But I think you're actually making my point.
Not at all am I making your point.
Let me explain to you why I think you are, because if this really only affects a few people, then it's a rule that barely comes into play anyway. It does. It needs to be changed so that we do not have to sit through a playoff series like that. Because I'm telling you right now, if the Clippers wind up in the playoffs and you wind up with DeAndre Jordan, a parade to the foul line for 7 games.
Why? Memphis didn't do it last night. Memphis didn't foul him last night, and they didn't feel they needed to win. So they did. And you know what? And if they do, then foul him. DeAndre Jordan, make your free throws. Don't change a rule because you can't do something. Think about what we're doing. Changing a rule, there's something because you're changing a rule because too many people are getting hurt. Look at the rules that are being enforced differently in football. They want to cut down concussions as a whole. This is one person who can't shoot free throws, so we're going to change a rule for the entire sport because of it. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
One man's ridiculous is another man's completely sensible. And while I can see that the vote is going strongly against me, it only proves what I've said many, many times before, and that is that my particular genius will not be appreciated until long after my time, as we will close the voting here in 10 seconds. And right now it's running about 70-30 against me and Van Gundy. But that's okay. That's okay, because we have right on our side. You're entitled to your opinion no matter how misguided it may be.
I have to ask, who are you 30% voting for this?
All right, we'll
close one person.
We'll close the vote here. When I saw it, right when we hit 20 minutes past the hour, it looked like it was about 71-29. It's something in that neighborhood. 7 out of 10 going in the opposite direction. Look, the people have spoken.
Yes, they have.
And the people are wrong.
People are right.
That's the point.
Great job.
The people are as wrong can possibly be.
Correct.
We closed it at 71-29, saying no, they should not change the rule. And you know what? Yeah. I'm stunned.
Surprised? Yeah, I am too. I'm surprised it wasn't 99-1.
I'm disappointed in you people. I have no idea how you're missing the forest for the trees.
I'm very happy, gang, that you voted to not reward ineptness by someone in a sport by changing a rule for them.
For whatever it's worth, it's called ineptitude.
Whatever.
It's over 118,000 votes we got in that little span there, so that's pretty good. Thank you, everybody, for doing that. We'll do those more often when we have these debates. Now, in the future, I'd like it if you would vote with me. Because
maybe if you'd make a good point, they would.
This was not so good for my ego. But the point of it is, once again, I know I'm right.
Yeah.
So now I just have to convince you.
Let me just say, in about 9 minutes, we're going to have to find something else because there's no way on God's green earth Jeff Van Gundy is coming on the show after he just saw that vote and now knows Greeny is on his side.
Jeff and I stand united. He will join us on that. Plus, is there a candidate for MVP that no one is talking about? We'll bring Jeff Van Gundy in on this. And I'm going to ask Jeff to chair my committee.
Well, yeah.
Because we've been voted down.
I do want to hear what he has to say about the storm in the court as well.
Okay.
I think he'd be interested in that. And then we'll talk about how you two are wrong about the rule.
We'll do that and more. Jeff, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Mike and Mike, how are you this morning?
Good morning, guys.
Well, you were my hero on Friday night. I brought up, I went not quite as far as you did on the Hack a DeAndre thing Friday morning here on Mike and Mike. And then I was watching you and Breen on Cavs Wizards Friday night, and you took it a step farther about how the commissioner has to get in there and make a rule change immediately. Now, Golic disagrees with us, and we just put it to a vote of our listeners, and they disagree strongly with us. So, Jeff, you and I, again, are those geniuses who we will not be appreciated until after our time. But explain to me, if you were to put a rule in there to try and get this out of the sport, how you would do it.
Well, if a rule is good enough for the last 2 minutes of the game, which away from the ball fouls are illegal in the last 2 minutes, why would they be legal in the first 46 minutes? The other thing I can't understand is what our game needs is better flow, and what kills flow is timeouts and free throws. We need less of both. Third, there's been rule changes throughout our game that have helped the game evolve. There used to, I bet you Mike Golic wants to go back to where there's a jump ball after every basket because he's a traditionalist, and no three-point line, which the traditionalists fought as well, which has been great for the game. So, listen, this idea that somehow if we see these horrible free throw shooters take less free throws, it's going to take away a strategy that is so important to our game. I couldn't disagree more. What our game needs is more flow, less free throws, less timeouts.
I actually love the three-point line. I actually would like to see the jump ball back, though. So I'm not fully a traditionalist. But here's my thought on this, Jeff, is I get changes, and Greeny, noted changes in sports, and changes in sports were for big picture situations. And how I put it when we were doing the vote on this is, you are basically, what you're doing is you're saying this one person is so inept at what he does, we're basically going to reward him for it by changing a rule so he doesn't have to do it anymore. And that's, I get general changes to make a game better, but here it happened so infrequently. He did 28 free throws in that game. Last night, Memphis beats him. He takes 4 free throws, and the Clippers still lose. So it doesn't happen every time. It happens at such an infrequency, I don't think it even measures on the metric scale or the seismic, or whatever the scale is. Help me with that.
Fine.
The metric
it doesn't
scale.
really matter.
You know what I'm
Go
saying.
ahead.
So I just don't see rewarding someone for being so inept at what he does by changing a rule for him.
See, to me, you're not rewarding the guy who can't shoot free throws. You're rewarding the fans for not having to sit there and go through it, no matter how infrequent it is. And secondly, and this is what no one will answer, if it's illegal in the last 2 minutes, why would it be legal in the first 46 minutes? There's very few rules in college basketball that are better than the NBA, but they have an intentional foul rule in college basketball. I don't understand why intentionally fouling somebody is a strategy that the coaches have. Listen, I don't blame coaches for doing whatever's within the rules to try to win. It's not a coaching thing. To me, this is a rule thing. It's illegal in the last 2 minutes. There should be no reason then that it's legal in the first 46 minutes. It's arbitrary, this last 2 minutes versus first 46 minutes.
There is part of me that sees the logic to that. So let me counter with this. So if now we say no more of what we see being done to DeAndre Jordan, okay, so you can't, as soon as the ball inbounded, you grab him. So now, I mean, listen, if you're a coach and you still want to put him at the free throw line, you let him set up their offense, he gets down on the low block, and you get physical down there, and they call a foul. That happens all the time off the ball. Now, how is the ref supposed to decide whether that was intentional or whether that was physical play, and DeAndre Jordan's still at the free throw line?
Well, they still have to make that determination in the last 2 minutes of the game. If he's involved in the play, it's not an away from the ball foul. I think it's unsightly and unseemly trying to run around and grab him. It's not the intention of the game. If it happens within the flow of the game, and listen, these officials are paid pretty good money. They should be paid a lot more. And if they can't get that right, then we need to move the guy out who can't get that determination right, move that official out and get a new one. And I think those officials, first of all, should be paid a heck of a lot more and then held to, I mean, that's not even a difficult call for them. They've seen hundreds of thousands of games. They can make that determination. I just, listen, the game needs better flow. College level, pro level. There needs to be a reduction in timeouts, and there needs to be a reduction in these absurd free throw numbers. Listen, I think it may not get changed until it happens in an NBA Finals where some team goes at one of these bad free throw shooters and just makes a farce of the game.
Listen, Jeff and I are right. The rest of you are wrong, and we're just going to move on because we have a lot of other topics I want to get to with Jeff. Here's one of them, Jeff Van Gundy, again, with us on Mike and Mike. There is a candidate for MVP of the league right now that no one is talking about. The conversation has been dominated by Steph Curry most of the year because he's having a great year, and Golden State has been playing so well, and James Harden, whose numbers are huge. But right now, if you actually look at Russell Westbrook's numbers, and he has been, in the absence of Kevin Durant, carrying that team, his numbers are actually comparable. He's scoring more points than Curry is. He has more assists than Curry or Harden. He has more rebounds per game than Curry or Harden. His player efficiency rating is greater than that of Curry or Harden. I know he's missed a bunch of games with injury, and the team isn't going to finish, at the top of the conference. But Russell Westbrook, right now, you could make an argument, is playing as well as anybody in the league, and I don't feel like enough people are talking about it. Am I missing something, Jeff?
No, he's playing great basketball. I think I'd be very interested to know the most games a player has missed who's won MVP, because being there is a huge factor. And he did miss upwards, I think, to 15, 18 games, whatever it may be. He's playing tremendous basketball. He plays with great passion. I think another guy who no one's talking about is LeBron James. I mean, I think it's absurd that he's not in the conversation as well. Cleveland is playing as well as any team in the NBA right now. LeBron James is playing as well as any player in the NBA, but I think we've got voter fatigue when it comes to James for MVP as well. So, to me, I think James is the guy who's being overlooked the most. I think Westbrook's having a great year, but I think the injury situation may cloud it a little bit more right now.
And you're right with the number. You're right in the area. He's missed 14 games. They played 56. He's played in 42. So he has missed some.
That's not that bad, then.
No.
I mean, I'm gonna correct my flawed thinking. He should definitely be in there. If he doesn't miss any more and he continues to play like this and they keep rolling, he should absolutely be involved in that conversation.
Mike and Jeff Van Gundy, you mentioned LeBron. Obviously, since his hiatus, he's been sensational, and the Cavs have been sensational. You know what it takes to win in the playoffs as well as anybody. Do they have it? What it takes to win the Eastern Conference in its entirety, for example? Do the Cavaliers have it?
Absolutely. I think right now you'd have to say with the moves David Griffin made, David Blatt has found his rotation. They play 8 guys. They play their guys a lot of minutes. I think they have developed great chemistry. They know their roles. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James know how they're playing together. I think Kevin Love is being, because his numbers are less than what they were in Minnesota, his contributions are being overlooked. He's still averaging 17, 18 points, 10 rebounds, and he stretches the floor to give driving lanes to both James and Irving. So I think they have everything that you need to win the Eastern Conference. I know Atlanta's going through a bit of a lull right now, but I like their habits and their depth. I think they'll be a good challenge. And then Chicago, I think if Derrick Rose and Noah can find their games somehow, then I think they have a shot as well.
Last one, Jeff. Quickly, we started the show off with Kansas State beat Kansas last night, and students stormed the court. Bill Self kind of got pinned against a table. So the whole talk brought up again of storming the court, the possibility of injuries and what could go wrong. What's your thought on students storming the court?
Yeah, I did a college game earlier this year. Oklahoma State was at home against Kansas, and Oklahoma State won, and they stormed the court. And, we were broadcasting right, down at court level. And I had never been live to a court storming. And I have to say, it was scary when you're sitting there watching because the kids are flying out there. If anybody ever fell or got in a bad situation, I don't know what would save them. And I would hate to take away the spontaneous reaction of joy when you beat a great team, but I could understand absolutely why some people are uneasy about it because there is some danger to the kids who are storming and certainly the participants who just got done playing.
Yeah, so basically exactly the same place that we're sitting with it this morning. Something's got to get done because clearly someone is going to get seriously hurt, and they have, and people just don't talk about it. Jeff, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, take care, guys.
Mike and Mike.
With Mike Mayock, if you did not watch NFL Network's coverage of the Combine, then you missed 2 things. You missed, of course, first and foremost, Mike Mayock's exceptional eye and his great judge of talent in the National Football League. But maybe more important than that, you missed his musical ability.
My name is known all over the world to all the foxy ladies and the pretty girls. I'm going down in history as the baddest brother there ever could be. And the beat goes high. You want me? I better stop right there. I'm digging a hole I probably can't crawl out of.
Went with the Sugar Hill Gang.
Mike Mayock joining us now, which was extraordinarily entertaining. And I'm told that George Clinton was tweeting at his son last night. I saw your daughter, Mike, Rich Eisen tweeted a text that your daughter sent to you basically telling you to stop doing this because you were ruining her street cred.
It's the most bizarre thing because I'll never forget, like yesterday, my freshman year at Boston College in 1976. The first album I heard was The Mothership Connection, which was Parliament Funkadelic back in the day, and I loved it. And I know all the words, and after that, Atomic Dog came out a couple years later, and so I've always loved that Parliament P-Funk, and I guess people don't expect that of me. So when it comes out, it's even kind of doubly weird. And I got off the plane from Indianapolis last night, and my son had texted me because he has the same. I don't tweet, but he's Michael Mayock also. And George Clinton had tweeted at him, thinking it was me, Mike Mayock, coolest NFL announcer ever. How about that?
Let me tell you, the thought of you doing rap would be like the thought of Greeny being the leading rusher in the NFL. It just doesn't compute. That all of a sudden, when you were doing it, I'm like, seriously, is Mayock's rapping right now?
And and anyone who follows also knows that you're not on Twitter because there's all these if Mayock tweeted tweets that come out of NFL Network all the time during the combine. So let's stop wasting our time with this and let's get down to business, Mike. Todd McShay yesterday raving about Jameis Winston, at this point saying that in his 10 years of doing this, that only Andrew Luck he would anticipate having a higher grade at this point. Do you share that enthusiastic response to Jameis Winston as a prospect right now?
Are we talking purely on the field or off the field also?
Well, I mean, I guess we have to do a little bit of both, right? Because we're talking about the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, I always break it down into two things. One is what's my on-the-field evaluation. I'm not as high as Todd that way because I think Jameis throws way too many interceptions, and obviously he had an ability to close games, which he was at his best when the best was needed, and I give him credit for that. But he threw 7 interceptions against Louisville and Florida, and it could have been 14 if the other team could catch the ball. I mean, he throws the ball up for grabs, in my opinion, way too often. So that's my big issue with him on the field and why I wouldn't have him rated as highly as Todd does. And then there's a whole separate issue whether or not his off-the-field stuff is predictive or not. And I believe it or not, I talked to some psychologists in Indy that work for teams, and how much pressure does it put on a psychologist when the football guys are all going, hey, we're good with them. Just bless them and let's go. So that, to me, that's the bigger issue, is do you believe that this kid won't be Johnny Mandel, he won't be Jamarcus Russell? You got to believe in the kid first before you believe in the football.
Well, you're Tampa Bay. Do you take Jameis Winston or Marcus Mariota or trade it?
I don't know yet. I'm doing I take him number one from a talent perspective. I'm all over it from a talent perspective, but I would have to do my more homework off the field because right now he scares me. He was the face of Florida State football, and he continued to make bad decisions off the field.
Excuse me, Mike and Mike Mayock on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Get the Subway experience better for you and great tasting grilled chicken strips today. Subway, eat fresh. Next question is, how much do we like Marcus Mariota on the field? He's the one about whom there are no off-the-field questions, but how much do you like him on the field?
Yeah, he's the classic case of, okay, all these individual components work. How much do we believe that he can transition into the role of NFL pocket passer? And since there's very minimal proof of it on tape, it's a leap of faith. And I think most people are going to take that leap because the kid is so solid, so smart, and so hardworking. They believe that he'll be able to do it. My concern, again, is that most of that pocket awareness feel is innate. I think you're born with it or you're not. So it's a little bit of a projection. I love the kid, and I think both of them will be gone in the first, certainly be gone in the first 6 picks, and probably in the first 2.
We know, players have egos, but as you go up the ladder into the coaching and then upstairs, the egos grow even more. How much do you think comes into play? Mariota's a great guy, and we can coach him to the NFL way of playing.
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt, Michael, that there's some of that. And I think that's where mistakes get made when kids have great measurables at the combine and they don't have great production, and coaches say, hey, I can take that and mold that. I think this is a little different because he's got such a significant legacy of being a starter. Everybody I've talked to, from Jim Mara, who competed against him every year, to Kyle Long, who was his teammate at Oregon, say
says he is the ultimate warrior, the best leader they've ever been around, and even though he doesn't manifest it as vocally as, say, a Jameis Winston, he's nonetheless as good a leader. So I think, Mike, you buy into this kid. I really do.
Mike and Mike Mayock is with us. Is there another quarterback? There's a group there of guys. Is there another one you think is a franchise quarterback? I mean, we all know the history of where Montana was drafted, where Russell Wilson was drafted, where Tom Brady was drafted. There are a few other guys in this draft that some people like a lot. Is there one in particular that so far you like a lot?
Well, remember Jeff George back in the day, years ago? You know, beautiful arm. I mean, there are some guys that are born with an ability to spin a football, and Bryce Petty's one of them. I mean, that's why you have to see guys throw live. I really enjoyed watching. The ball comes out of his hand beautifully. He throws a beautiful ball. He's got a big arm. However, as good as all that is, his tape scares me just because he's way further away in that spread offense than, say, Mariota is. So I think he throws a beautiful football, and I think he's a project. I think he's going to go in the second round probably, but he's a project, as is the Hundley kid from UCLA. They're the next two as far as having any chance of coming in and playing, but I think both of them are at least 2 years away.
Yeah, that Brett Hundley from UCLA, the other two in that four group, Sean Mannion from Oregon State and Garrett Grayson from Colorado State, who plays in the pro-style offense. One other position and person, if there was a lock in this draft leading up to the Combine, Mike, it was that Amari Cooper could be the best player in this draft, the most polished player in this draft, and maybe the best person, especially at his position, a wide receiver. You have Kevin White from West Virginia ranked ahead of him. They both had really good combines. Why do you have Kevin White ahead of him?
My take on Amari Cooper is he's safer than Kevin White. And he reminds me of a Torrey Holt. He gets in and out of breaks better. He had over 100 catches. There's one tape of his I didn't like, and that was against LSU, who has quality press corners. He was targeted 17 times. He only had 8 catches. I shouldn't say only. He had 8 catches out of 17 targets, 3 drops, and of the 3 contested balls, he went 0 for 3. Now, I still think he's going to be, at worst, a quality number 2 receiver, and he could be a solid number 1. I think Kevin White's ceiling is higher. You saw that when he ran the other day. He ran 4.35. He's bigger. He's stronger. He's more powerful after the catch. You know, he could bust. You know, his Cooper's safer, but I love the upside of Kevin White.
It's Mike Mayock, again, rapping his way into your television on NFL Network, and certainly lots of fun to be had between now and the NFL Draft. Thank you, Mike. Always our pleasure.
Thanks, Mike.
My pleasure. Thanks, fellas.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike.
From Turner Sports and the Basketball Hall of Fame, the one and only Charles Barkley is on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Good morning, Charles.
Good morning, guys. How y'all doing?
We're doing great. We have a million things on the table. So let's start with this. We don't want to take any of the fun away from college students and college basketball fans when their home team pulls off a big upset and they go running out there on the court. It's fun to watch, and it's fun to do, again, as I acknowledged. I was a student at Northwestern one year. We beat Indiana when they were the defending national champs. I may have been the first one out there on the court. But to watch these scenes like the one in Manhattan last night, it just seems a certainty that someone is going to get seriously hurt. What are your thoughts on court storming in college hoops?
Well, I think it's obviously a very dangerous thing. I mean, I understand the excitement, but I think you got to be really careful because you don't want anybody. I mean, we've had a lot of, a few instances where kids have gotten hurt. So I just think you got to be careful, to be honest with you. Listen, but college basketball is exciting. You know, I'm doing all my prep work for March Madness right now. But you just have to be careful because you would hate for anybody to get hurt, seriously.
Is it something, do you think, like the SEC, where they've basically banned it and will fine the school if you do it? Or do you think there's a way to still allow it and maybe have it be less dangerous?
Well, I don't think we got to worry about it a lot in the SEC because not many teams are going to beat Kentucky, but that's the only team you got to really storm the court for. Well, I think we need to do something because you put a stiff fine. I think you have to be really careful suspending people. That's not fair. But a stiff fine would stop it probably more than anything.
Mike and Sir Charles. Next topic on the table. We were reading with interest these stories about Kevin Garnett coming to Minnesota, and one great quote from Flip Saunders said, guys, listen, when KG walks in the locker room, your phones better be tucked away, because if they're not, they're going to get thrown in the toilet on game night. This idea that they've brought Kevin Garnett in there to teach some of those young players, particularly Andrew Wiggins, I would imagine, how to be a pro. And Mike was worrying earlier that, today's generation of young people, maybe they don't even listen to a guy like Kevin Garnett right there in their own locker room. What do you think? Does KG command respect, and do those guys follow him the second he walks in that door?
Well, I hope they respect KG. It's a different animal, to be honest with you, right now. When I got to the NBA, the biggest influence in my life on the basketball court is probably Moses Malone. We had Dr. J, Andrew Toney, Maurice Cheeks, Bobby Jones, guys like that. The biggest problem we have now, everybody on your team is like 27, 28. We started drafting players out of high school. Now they only stay for 1 year. So it's a very dangerous thing. But listen, if you have to, I saw that the Denver Nuggets, Brian Shaw had to take their phones and things. Listen, that tells you your team quit on you. They're not gonna, if they want to be on their cell phone instead of watching tapes and things like that, that means the team has quit on you, to be honest with you.
So go back to the end of your career and the young players then, when you were a veteran in the locker room. Did that group, did they listen to you, or did you find that they were tuning you out? How did that go for you?
Well, I thought at the end of my career, my last couple of years with the Rockets, I thought the kids were really just tuning me out, to be honest with you. They're different now. They grew up with AAU, which I think is one of the worst things that have ever happened to the world, that AAU crap. And, I wish these guys would just listen. I understand they're young, and, it's like your kids. Your kids always think you're just like an old person and you've never been through anything. They think you just woke up one day and you're old. They don't realize we have their best. They don't realize we have their best interests in hand. They just think we're just old people who are hating on them. But I think I listen to you guys and watch you guys a lot, man. And Golic, you talk about it all the time. And when you older guys in the locker room, man, they're supposed to teach you how to do things the right way. And I wish a lot of these young kids would appreciate the older guys. We're not trying to hate on them. We're trying to teach them to do it the right way so they don't make some of the same mistakes we made.
Like a guy like DeMarcus Cousins, for example, aggravated with you. He got into it a little bit with you, or at least from a distance recently. And a lot of people, myself included, said, maybe that the young players today need to listen to a guy like Charles Barkley for exactly the reasons you're talking about. Did that bother you?
No, because I don't like DeMarcus Cousins, and he does not like me. Well, first thing, it's interesting. These young guys today, they all want us to say positive things about them on radio and TV. They're very sensitive. Anytime you say anything about them, they overreact. They don't ever look at it as positive criticism or trying to make them better. And you only want to make them better. You don't want them to make the same mistakes. But I don't like DeMarcus Cousins. I wish that he's a good player. I wish him nothing but the best. But he does not like me, and I don't like him at all. But I wish him the best. And part of our job, let's go back to the Josh Gordon thing. I was telling him, I had a brother who died at a young age because of, dealing with drugs and things like that. You just don't want him to go down that same alley. You see it all the time. If you get involved with drugs and alcohol, it's going to ruin your career and more than likely ruin your life. But I don't ever take anything personally. I think DeMarcus Cousins is a good player. But like I said, I've said on air, I don't like him at all. But I'm never going to say anything negative about him as a player. I'm able to separate the two. He's a very good player, and I wish him nothing but the best.
Mike and Mike, Charles Barkley with us, Turner Sports, obviously, Hall of Fame, all the rest of that getting set for the tournament and the stretch of the NBA season. We had a little debate here on the show the last couple of days. We'll let you get in the middle of it. I watched, you guys had the game Thursday night, San Antonio and the Clippers. That's supposed to be a great basketball game. And Greg Popovich, because it's completely within the rules, just made it completely unwatchable with the hacking of DeAndre Jordan starting in the second quarter and then throughout the entire fourth quarter. Jeff Van Gundy went nuts on our air Friday night saying that that Adam Silver should put a rule in to prevent this immediately. Golic doesn't agree with me. What are your thoughts on trying to find a way to put a rule in that would take this hacking of a Shaq or whoever it might be out of the sport?
Well, I'm going to agree with Golic on this one because we had that game and it was an awful game to watch. It kept us till like an extra hour, so it was awful. I think we have to be careful because of what's next. You know, we're like, we can't, just because guys don't do stuff well, we can't change the rule. What's next? The team's not a good jump shooting team, like no jump shots, no game, no layups. I think we have to be very careful changing rules just to suit one situation. So, listen, and it's not, I know it sounds simple. You know, he has to make his free throws, but it sucks when that happens, to be honest with you. But I don't think in any sport you can just change the rules because somebody don't do something well.
Completely agree. And Greeny, I'll add you said it doesn't hurt anything by changing the rule. Yes, it does, because DeAndre Jordan now gets to stay on the court in a critical time because you've changed the rule. If he can't shoot his free throws, the best place for him at the end of a game may be on the bench, but you're letting him stay on the court because he can't do something well because you want to change the rule.
I understand it completely from the competitive side, and I'm saying if I was a coach, I would do it. My point, though, Charles, is we change rules in sports all the time for the betterment of the fans, just for the enjoyment of watching the game. And that was a game I was looking forward to watching. I love you guys. I love watching the game. And that was unwatchable. I mean, there's no way to have watched that game without at some point picking up a book.
Well, first of all, I totally agree with you, but I think we just have to be careful. I mean, because, like, there's always something, and no matter what sport it is, no matter what sport it is, there's some rule you're like, okay, I don't like that. I want to take a player out the game. That's why I think we got to be careful. Let's just say, hypothetically, your Jets. They don't have a quarterback.
Right.
Let's just say, let's play a whole game. They're not throwing the ball well. We don't allow them to throw the ball. They have to run the ball every single time. That really wouldn't be a lot of fun to watch as a Jet fan, would it?
No, it would not be fun to watch at all. Mike and Charles. I want to throw something else at you, and I'll give credit to Steve Cerruti for my staff here, that there is a name that has not been mentioned, at least enough, in the MVP conversation, and it should be, and that name is Russell Westbrook. Steph Curry's having an unbelievable year, we get it. Harden's having an unbelievable year, we get it. Let me give you the numbers on Westbrook. These are just in February games. 45 points, 6 assists, 6 boards. 48 points, 11 assists, 9 rebounds. 24, 9, and 9. 34, 10, and 5. 33, 10, and 7. 21, 17, and 8. Russell Westbrook is carrying a team with Durant and all the injuries they've had. They're in the playoff picture right now. He's playing as well as anybody in the league. Do you, Charles, think that he should be in the MVP conversation?
Well, he's in the conversation, but I think right now James Harden is the leader in the clubhouse. If he's able, because the difference is, and we have this argument every year, the MVP does not go to the best player. It goes to the best guy who's having the best year. And with Dwight Howard being out basically pretty much all year, if the Rockets are able to stay maybe even in the top 4, I think right now they're 3 or 4. If they're able to stay in the top 3 or 4, I think it's James Harden to run away. The problem Russell has is they're the number 8 seed. They're not even in the playoffs, basically. Like, if they lose 2 games, they'll be out of the playoffs. And I always vote for the guy whose team is winning the most. It never goes to the best player. They have that silly debate every year. You know, Magic didn't win it every year. Larry Bird didn't win it every year. Michael Jordan didn't win it every year. It goes to the guy who's having the best regular season. And right now, like I say, with Dwight being out all year, I think James Harden is the leader in the clubhouse. Steph Curry's probably a close second, but James Harden should be the MVP right now, in my opinion, because with all the games that Dwight has missed, if the Rockets, and especially in the Western Conference, if they're able to stay, at least have the home court the first round, which is going to be very difficult, I might add. Because if they lose 2 or 3 in a row, they'll be down to 5, 6, or 7. But James Harden is the leader in the clubhouse.
All right, a couple of off the kind of beaten path here. We were talking about and we're both in this age category, Charles. Dr. Dre was on the cover of AARP. Would you want your picture on the cover of AARP?
You know, it's interesting. I just turned 52 last week, and I started getting stuff from AARP. And it was really weird. And, you know, Dr. J, that's somebody that's really cool. But you know what? Hey, I used to make fun of old people. Now I'm one of them. It's not even funny anymore.
Yeah, let me tell you what. My wife throws out all that AARP stuff as soon as it comes in the mail. Everyone's still in denial. And real quick, the NFL Combine just ended. In your best shape of your life, what do you think you could have run a 40 in?
Wow, that's a great question. I would have ran under 5. I'm pretty sure. I do. Under 5. I'd have to be very careful. I mean, I'm not a running back or cornerback, but I think I could outrun any defensive lineman or linebacker back in my day.
There you go.
He outran Dick Pavetta.
Yeah.
He also got you on here.
Hey, speaking of AARP, I only run against old people now.
There you go. Only people in the AARP.
The great Charles Barkley with us. Always our pleasure. Thank you, Charles.
Thanks, Charles.
All right, guys. Thank you, guys. Y'all take care.
This has been the best of Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio Pod Center. To hear more from Mike and Mike, log on to ESPNradio.com and become an ESPN Radio Insider.
The best of Mike and Mike.